you absolutely can save no matter how much you earn. How, you ask me? Well, you didn't ask me, but I will tell you.
Please tell us. That's very important.
You can start with as low as £1. A lot of people think, it's not going to do anything for me. The £1 is not the main goal there. It's the discipline you're building. It's the discipline to say, I'm going to commit to saving £1 per week. Let's just say per week. If you do that, £1 per week, that is over the course of a month, that's £4. It seems so small. And the reason why I'm using £1 is just to say, like, you cannot tell me you don't have £1 because you would end up going to McDonald's and buying burger. It's just the fact of life. So if you want to you can just decide that, you know what, I'm just going to save this £1. There's a very, very easy way to do it. Automate it. I'm an advocate for automation because when you automate it, you don't have to think about it. It's one less thing to think about, right? Automate your savings, automate your investments. But for the saving, automate it. If you decide that, you know what, all I can afford to save, regardless of my financial situation, is £5 per month, do that. I started with that as well when I was in uni.
£5 a month?
£5 a month, yes. It was just £5 a month. I worked several jobs, had to pay, my bills and stuff like that. And I said, you know what? All I can afford is £5 per month. And then I wasn't really automating it. What I did was I put it in a completely separate bank account. So I don't see it. Because if I see it, I'm going to spend it.
Yeah. I think your background
yes,
would have exposed you to a lot of people and how they deal with their finances. So maybe it would really help us to start with the common problems you see when it comes to people and their finances. I think let's just make it would flow better that way.
Yes.
So what are some of the common challenges you see? And then we'll talk about the solutions in that way. Then it's just very
I think
easy.
That's definitely better.
Yeah.
First common challenge, people do not budget. That just ties back straight into the not understanding your financial situation. Like, it's like saying, oh, I love pasta. It's like saying, I want to make pasta, but I want to just do it with my eyes closed. I'm just going to buy anything and just put it together. It's not going to work because you're doing that. You're doing it very haphazardly. Same thing with your finances. If you just think, oh, I have a mental note of how much I'm spending here or there, it's not going to work. And that's always the number one. For me, is the number one common money mistake that lots of people make is not budgeting. And a lot of people find budgeting so tedious.
I was going to say that.
Stressful. Where it doesn't have to be. It can be tedious because a lot of people say, oh, you have to budget, put in a spreadsheet. I do not function that way either. I don't like it. I like things automated. I don't have to think about it. It's done. So one of the best ways, there's so many budgeting apps out there. Some that I would name drop. One that I use personally. I never really promote anything that I do not use or I haven't tried myself. So Snoop is a really good one where if you have multiple bank accounts or even if it's just the one account, just connect it to the app. It automatically already helps you split your expenses into categories. It already tells you, okay, this is what you spent on rent. If there's certain categories that you feel should not be in a particular bracket, you can readjust it. That's automatically done for you. So instead of you spending, I only spend 1 hour, and the reason why I spend 1 hour is because I have multiple accounts that I have to consolidate or sort out on a monthly basis. I spend 1 hour to just assess my finances on a monthly basis, and I don't look at it again until the next month. But for someone, let's just assume the first example was just one person, a student, for instance, or just even a working professional. I have just one account. I'm just starting out. Get the Snoop app. It's free. You don't have to pay for it.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So there are others like that. Like another one is Plum, but for the categories, you might have to pay just a fee. But Snoop, you don't.
So with Snoop, how is it able to predict what to put in which pots?
Just by determining. So when you pay for things, there are references, and this is just looking more into the back end of how it works now. Is like you already you can tell if something is a rent. So let's say you bought Amazon, it would just predict and say Amazon is shopping.
Okay.
If you bought something from Asda, it would say groceries.
Yeah.
So that's how it groups your that's how it categorizes your expenses. But then you can then decide, let's say you bought something and you realize that actually that's not really groceries. I bought it at Asda, but it was clothes. You can recategorize it and just choose a different bracket.
So it's able to track your bank accounts and your
Yes.
expenses and spending.
Everything is able to track, including your credit. For those that have credit cards, you can consolidate everything in that one place. That takes your budgeting stress completely away by just automating it. And that way you're able to see, oh, every month I actually spend, okay, let's use figures now.
Yeah.
Let's say your monthly income that hits your account after tax is £1,000, right? You can immediately see, oh wow, I'm spending 700 on rent, and I'm spending 200 on groceries, and then I spend £50 on all the other miscellaneous, like phone bill and all this, and now I have £50 left to spend in the month. Once you see that, you're able to then identify. Now you've now crossed the bridge, and now you know your financial situation. Now you're now able to take the next step of saying, okay, do I need to spend this much in this area? One thing I realized last month as well, that's why a review every month is really good. I did not realize that my internet bill had increased. It went from 27 to £40.
That's significant for...
Very significant, right? And I wouldn't have known it, I wouldn't have caught it if I did not look at my account. And when I spotted it, I was like, this can't be right. What's happening here? So I immediately rang up my provider. They explained why it increased. And I said, can you negotiate a deal or I'm leaving because this is too high. And they actually gave me a better deal for the same price.
Wow.
This is why it's really important to make sure you review. And all that came from just looking. Right now, you've taken away the stress of having to actually budget. All you need to do is just looking at your situation, looking at your expenses in the different categories you've put it. And then sometimes you can also realize, so like the example I was given earlier where I'm like, why am I subscribing to this again?
Yeah.
Why am I paying for this Netflix? I realized that why is myself and my sisters, why are we all paying for Netflix? Why can't we just be on one account? It's just very simple changes. Very small, minor changes can lead to like you saving quite a significant amount of money. And that's just by budgeting. Which is why it's the fundamental beginning for anything finance. You want to get your finances in order. That's the number one thing.
Can we talk about the psychological or emotional side of budgeting? Because it feels like you're restraining yourself or you're restricting yourself from enjoying the pleasures of life.
Yes. This is another thing a lot of people talk about.
Depressing. And just the thought of budgeting, it just feels like I can't live the way I want to live. I can't enjoy life.
Right. Yeah. That's another thing. That's actually a very, very major worry. I call it a myth.
Oh, okay.
I would say it's a myth because it's not true. Budgeting does not restrict your life. Actually, it enhances your life because it helps you realize where you can save more money for that discretionary spending you want. It goes back to the example of what I just said, right? Now you've realized that instead of me paying for Netflix, my sister is paying for Netflix. My brother is paying for Netflix. We can all get on one account. I save that extra money to buy that extra burger I want to buy. Oh. It's really just changing your mindset about it. It's very much a psychological thing, right? It's just changing how you think about it. I think about it as like, okay, that extra subscription, that's an extra for me. I love coffee. That's an extra coffee I can get to buy.
I like that you mentioned you love coffee because I've heard some kind of I've seen some kind of content with people talking about cutting out little things like coffee. Would that really save you money?
Yes, I don't subscribe to that. I don't subscribe to so I think it's two ways, right? When you're first starting off, that's why it's important to understand your situation first. And then cutting off that one coffee here or there, it would help, but it's not really going to dramatically change your life. What I call it is, instead of just spending money, I call it value-based spending. Value-based spending to me is, am I spending, when I want to buy anything at all, even if it's just coffee, is this something that's going to improve the quality of my life? Is this something that's going to improve like my, that's going to add to me than just like, something small? Is it improving my education, my experiences? Because sometimes some people want to go to very affluent restaurants compared to just McDonald's. But it's thinking, what is your why? Why are you doing it? That's what I call value-based spending. But as you said, but in the beginning, you really need to first assess your financial situation and then decide, okay, where can I cut back to put in the things that's actually going to add value to me? Okay. If that coffee is, for me, coffee gets me going, it gets me. So and this is where I budget for it. I don't just spend. I don't just say, oh yeah, because I love it, I'm just going to spend on it. Because I like this, I'm just going to spend on it. No. You can't do that. It's budgeting for it. And then you realize that, okay, if that thing is valuable, like it's value-based, you would find something else that you spend money on that's not value-based that you can cut out.
Okay, so budgeting is the first thing, yeah.
Budgeting
first of all, you mentioned that understand your situation,
yes,
and then budget,
and then budget, yes.
And make sure that it's automated.
Automation will save you the headache completely, because it automatically, even if you don't review it for like 2 months, it reviews it for you, and Snoop sends you notification. So if, for instance, you've overspent on one category, because once it categorizes, and then it asks you to set a number. So let's say, like I said, your rent and your regular expenses would be the same. Like it wouldn't change usually, at least for the duration of a year. So like if you're paying a mortgage or something, it wouldn't change for a while. Those things are kind of fixed. Your fixed expenses, right? You can literally set, this is the budget for it. Once that is done, if anything changes, so I also got the notification about my internet bill increasing. I just got a notification from Snoop. I was like, this has increased. And I'm like, why? Yes.
Oh, that's interesting.
And before, that's what prompted me to
go review. Now I need to go download Snoop. Because I did put it down when I went to that event where I saw you speak. I wrote it somewhere. I said I was going to download. I've never done it. I'm like, okay, I need to do this. And now I would actually
It's the easiest thing. 5 minutes of your time, I promise. And not forgetting other apps that do the same thing. I think Monzo now. So for those that have a Monzo account, Monzo has now clued in. They've now they've realized what they were missing, because they have the infrastructure. And now they've now included that you can add other accounts as well. Because for me, Monzo is absolutely great. They already automatically do that, and they're they have an amazing user experience as well. I find it very easy to use when it comes to categorizing as well. But then I had several accounts, so I couldn't consolidate everything. And for me, I want everything in one place. I can see everything. I can budget. Because let's say I use this card for this. Now I use this card tomorrow. I use that card tomorrow. I can't really budget if everything is all over the place. Yes. But when I bring it all together, I can see the full picture of what I'm spending, including my credit. Which is a big part that a lot of people forget. You can see what you're spending on your credit card, what you've paid off on your credit card. If your interest rate has increased, a lot of people don't even know that interest has increased on their credit sometimes. And that takes more money from you. So budgeting isn't taking money from you. It's helping you to save more money.
What if I just want to use a pen and paper?
You can also use a pen and paper, which is why they're like Excel-based spreadsheets. I will be releasing one because I know there's still some people that really like to use a pen and paper. I started with the pen and paper because I always needed to budget something before these apps came along. So I have one that I use, and I will be putting it out in the new year. December is over. I want to enjoy my holiday. But I would put it out in the new year for anyone who wants to purchase it. It's not going to be anything expensive, but it just really breaks down your fixed expenses, your variable expenses. I'll be included in the sinking fund because I think it's the game changer. Things you can budget under your sinking fund, examples of sinking funds, as well as like what you should do for savings and investment. And mine definitely looks into like what kinds of savings. Did several categories of savings and several categories of investment, and what the reasons for it. the small term, is it like the goal, the timeline, the duration. So is it a short term, long term, or are you looking at, is it for retirement? Because that would determine what actually goes into it and how much you allocate to it.
I mean, so I know towards the end of this conversation would ask people, tell people where they can reach you. But just in case someone is watching right now and is curious, where can they find that spreadsheet in the future? If
first thing is going to be on my page, Hustle and Coin. It would be on my bio, within my link tree. It's going to be there. That's definitely the first port of call. You always find it there.
It sounds very comprehensive. So I would
it would
like
be.
to see
it would be. Yes.
Yeah.
So there's so many types of. I mean, I'm not claiming to be the only one that's got this Excel spreadsheet. Tons and tons of people have free ones, but I think based on my experience and what I'm putting together, it's going to be quite comprehensive, and it'll have a glossary as well of like the definitions of the different things. So it's something I've been working on, but it should be done in the new year.
Oh, great. So go check it out.
Definitely check it out.
So the first mistake people make is not budgeting.
Not budgeting.
Or not budgeting properly at all.
Exactly. Or not budgeting. Thinking that you can just wing it with your finances. No, you're playing yourself. Don't do that.
What's the second thing?
Second thing, I would say biggest mistake is lifestyle inflation.
Oh.
Yeah. I would say is lifestyle inflation because I'm a believer in you mentioned something earlier where you said, people said just cut this.
Yeah.
I'm a believer in earn more. Go and earn more money. But then what that brings alongside it is lifestyle inflation. And if you can't be diligent in the little, you cannot be diligent with more.
Oh, that's very deep. Because I've heard people say, even when it comes to running businesses and stuff, or even just managing people, I'm like, if you can't manage one or two people, you can't manage a whole corporation.
Manage more.
Yeah,
you just can't. It's not rocket science. It's if you cannot decide and commit when you have a discretionary when your discretionary income to spend or disposable income that you have is £20 and you can't commit to saving £5. When you have 100, you would not save that £5 still.
You know what? I read The Richest Man in Babylon.
It's a beautiful book.
Right? And one of the key nuggets, the main thing actually that I learned from that book is that no matter how much you earn, you can save.
Yes. Absolutely.
Because someone is probably watching us and is thinking, I don't make enough money. I can hardly get by.
That's
how
another
can
myth.
I put some money aside?
That's another myth. Another very, very big myth that, people believe that, life is dealing with me. And that's not to take away from anyone's experiences or what's going on at all. Absolutely not. But life is dealing with everyone. Life is not going to stop dealing with everyone.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I have to be very real here. But then that's why it's so important to save. And that will bring me to my next point, but I'll finish with it because the next point is not having an emergency fund after lifestyle inflation. At least something to fall back on, because imagine if you had that. It's a cushioning. When life starts to deal with us, be it health, be it something random. Like the other day my furniture broke and I'm just like, oh my days, what am I gonna do? But thankfully I didn't have to stress too much because there's an emergency fund for it just somewhere. And now I don't have to dip into this month's income just to cover that unexpected expense that just came out of nowhere. So to go back to lifestyle inflation very quickly, if you can't be diligent and small, you can't be diligent when you have more. You absolutely can save no matter how much you earn. How, you ask me? Well, you didn't ask me, but I will tell you.
Please tell us. That's very important.
You can start with as low as £1. A lot of people think, it's not gonna do anything for me. The £1 is not the main goal there.
Yeah.
It's the discipline you're building.
Okay.
It's the discipline to say, I am gonna commit to saving £1 per week. Let's just say per week. if you do that, £1 per week, that is over the course of a month.
Yeah.
That's £4. It seems so small. And the reason why I'm using £1 is just to say, like, worst case scenario.
Yeah, like,
you cannot tell me you don't have £1 because you would end up going to McDonald's and buying that cheeseburger. It's just a fact of life. So if you want to do, you can just decide that, you know what, I'm just going to save this £1.
Yeah.
And there's a very, very easy way to do it. Automate it. I'm an advocate for automation because when you automate it, you don't have to think about it. It's one less thing to think about, right? Automate your savings, automate your investments. But for the saving, automate it. If you decide that, you know what, all I can afford to save, regardless of my financial situation, is £5 per month, do that. I started with that as well when I was in uni.
£5?
£5 a month, yes. It was just £5 a month. I worked several jobs, had to pay, my bills and stuff like that. And I said, you know what? All I can afford is £5 per month. And then I wasn't really automating it. What I did was I put it in a completely separate bank account. So I don't see it, because if I see it, I'm going to spend it.
Yeah.
So right now, that would go to the next step of like put that money somewhere else where you can't see it, where you can't touch it. Because if it's in the same account, you will spend it. It's just, there's no point in us deceiving ourselves. You will spend that money.
There's some people who just have one bank account. Yeah,
I do not advise that.
Yeah.
And also having not too many bank accounts, having more bank accounts actually help with your credit score, if you didn't know that.
It does help.
It does, because what you're building is you're telling the banks that, and when you eventually want to use your credit, that you're diligent to be able to have an account and manage it and not be in overdraft or being anything. Well, that's making sure you're not in overdraft. But then it does help. It really does help with you.
Speaking of the credit score, I'm just going to ask a question. I know that it might sound like a no-brainer. Mm-hmm. Can you have a credit score without a credit card?
Everyone has a credit score.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether you have a credit card. But it's how good will your credit score be? That's the difference. But I'm sure I've seen some people that didn't really have a credit card in their lives and the credit score is good. How? Then
that means that they really have a lot of money then. People who already have a lot of ins and outs. If you have about, say, £500,000 going in and out of your account frequently, you definitely gonna imagine you'd have a good credit score.
Exactly. There are different factors that come to play, but then basically all they're trying to do, all your credit score is telling a potential lender is this person is diligent to pay. They can see a track record that you were diligent to be able to manage money given to you effectively. You're paying when you need to pay. You're not running overdraft. You can manage money. Which goes back to show what we're saying, right? So if you have a savings, let's say you have a current and a savings account, separate. Your savings go in there. They can see that you're saving because it's a savings account. And then you can see through your current account that you're diligent in being able to pay all your bills without running into errors or running into issues.
Agreed. So now I need to say properly because I feel like this is the part I'm most interested in.
Okay.
We talked about an emergency fund. And,
yes.
I did not build an emergency fund for a really, really long time. Yeah. It's probably because of my background. We don't talk a lot about money.
We don't at all.
We don't talk a lot of money in African households. In fact, a lot of our parents don't even know this kind of information. Yeah. And it's time for us to educate ourselves. Yes. So if someone were to get to a point where they decide to take good care of their finances and like, okay, I'm going to start building an emergency fund. Yeah. In practical sense, so how can I do that practically?
That is beautiful. One of my favorite questions to answer. How can I build an emergency fund practically? It starts with budgeting.
Does it?
It does. Because it's when you see there are different budgeting techniques, right? People say do the 50-30-10 rule. Then there's the 40-20-20-10 rule. There's all these
I've heard
different
that.
rules. But I would say one strategy that is definitely my absolute favorite strategy, which I use and I think can work for, because some of these percentages they don't work for everyone. Everyone's household is very different.
Yeah.
Everyone's expenses and it's so very
Income, all
different.
these
It's
things
very
vary.
different. So to say that I'm gonna just take out exactly 10%.